Welcome to the book reading program of 3ABN Australia Radio. Does your faith need a boost? Do you think that miracles only happened in Bible times? Think again. Compiled by Remnant Publications, the book Get Ready for a Miracle recounts true stories that prove that when we step out in faith, God displays His power in undeniable ways. Here is our reader, Colville Smith.
This story is entitled Avgas Miracle. Philippians chapter 4 verses 6 and 7 says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." We had been talking about making a trip to Timor-Leste for about a year. The plan was to fly our Piper Twin Comanche airplane there from the Philippines. One of the reasons for the trip was to gather information and make plans for starting a medical aviation program with a helicopter. Another reason was to film mission stories to promote the work of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Timor-Leste. God had recently provided a donated helicopter in need of overhaul for the medical aviation program in Timor. The week before our planned departure, both vacuum pumps quit working on the airplane. Between 3 non-functional vacuum pumps, I was able to assemble one that worked. With some phone calls, I was able to find one new pump that we later received and installed 2 days before our departure. We had obtained the entry and exit permits from the Philippines ahead of time, and we had been granted an overflight permit for Indonesia. But we were still waiting for a landing permit in Dili, the capital of Timor-Leste. We continued praying for God to open the way. The day before we left, we received permission to land in Dili. The last obstacle was getting fuel in Timor-Leste for internal flights and for the return flight to the Philippines. There were 2 aircraft operators that had Avgas, aviation gas, but neither were willing to share by selling us a few drums. We moved forward in faith, trusting God to open the doors and provide. We flew from Manila to Davao on Sunday morning, where we filled the airplane with fuel. Although we had an exit clearance, it was still a complicated process requiring 7 signatures. On a Sunday, people were not in their offices. After much prayer and 5 hours of acquiring signatures, everything was in place for our departure. We left Davao on schedule at 11 p.m. After flying for 7 hours, we contacted Dili Approach. Their response was, "You don't have permission to land here." After a brief conversation and explanation, they found our landing permit and cleared us for landing. We were planning to make several flights within the country, but had to obtain another permit to do that, and the head of aviation was out of the country. We still had not found a fuel source and continued to pray for fuel and the local flight permits. The flight permit was granted, but we still had no fuel. We only had enough fuel for 3 hours, which would allow us to fly to Darwin, Australia, for fuel if we had to. But it did not allow any extra for local flights. By Thursday evening, we felt that we had to visit one place on the other end of the country to film some inspiring mission stories. We took all of the answered prayers and approved permits as a sign that God would provide fuel. So, stepping out in faith, we made the flight to Las Palos at the other end of the island. That left us with only another hour and a half of fuel, not enough to reach Darwin. We planned to return to the Philippines on Tuesday, but Monday morning came and we still did not have any fuel. We decided to contact one of the operators that had Avgas and ask once more, even though he had said no before. We tried all morning to contact him but did not have any success. I decided after lunch to fly to Darwin for fuel, which was a 2.5 hour flight. We proceeded to buy enough auto fuel to put in the plane to ensure we could reach Darwin. Then we started working on our exit clearances. I called an FBO, a fixed-based operator in Darwin, and learned that we could not get fuel after 6 p.m. It was already too late for me to make it by that time. Already having an exit stamp on our passports, we wanted to leave that day. Therefore, I told Darwin Airport we would fly down and sleep overnight in our airplane until we could fuel up the next morning. They informed me that staying overnight in our airplane was not allowed and the parking fee for the night would be $950. As we were dumping the last bit of auto fuel into the tank, we were pondering what to do next. There was a local airport worker standing with us as we put the gas in, and he asked us if we needed any Avgas. He said he knew where one drum was located. We asked him to show it to us. He took us into town to someone who had not only one, but 2 drums of Avgas. Apparently, he had been saving the 1 or 2 litres left on the bottom of each barrel from the local flight operations. After making sure it was indeed Avgas, we bought it and were able to fill all our tanks. We were able to leave Dili early Tuesday morning and fly straight back to Davao. God always honours our petitions, even though it is often at the last minute. A reflection associated with this story comes from Steps to Christ, page 96. When our prayers seem not to be answered, we are to cling to the promise, for the time of answering will surely come, and we shall receive the blessing we need most. But to claim that prayer will always be answered in the very way and for the particular thing that we desire is presumption. God is too wise to err and too good to withhold any good thing from them that walk uprightly. Then do not fear to trust Him, even though you do not see the immediate answer to your prayers. Rely upon His sure promise. Ask, and it shall be given you. Avgas Miracle was written by Dwayne and Wendy Harris of Philippine Adventist Medical Aviation Services, PAMAS. You can visit pamasmission.org for more information.
You've been listening to the book reading program by 3ABN Australia Radio, featuring Get Ready for a Miracle. For more information about this book, visit remnantpublications.com.